Hi, I'm Andrea McLean.
I am Irina Sula.
And welcome to The Agenda, where we bring together women from the world of business, journalism and entertainment to bring you stories from a female perspective. And today's conversation, I think, is going to be one that is going to resonate with so many of you, because it doesn't matter what your entrepreneurial skills are. It doesn't matter what your business is. When you become a parent, your life changes beyond all recognition. So we're going to be talking today about the theme of the parent trap. And who better to discuss this than our panel today, who are Tracy Morley, who is a parenting coach and the founder of the Intuition Legacy. We've also got Jutta Wohlrab, who is an international midwife coach, author and speaker. And we also have our celebrity guest today is Laura Hamilton, who's a TV presenter, property developer, also an entrepreneur and a mum of two. So, it's going to be a good conversation today, Marilla, isn't it?
Incredible panel, absolutely. And I would love to start with Jutta, because I've been following her journey for a while now. She's a midwife, but also that means that you follow the journey of a woman from being pregnant and then giving birth and following up how the baby is going. So which part of the journey is the most fascinating one, Jutta? Tell us a little bit more.
I have to say, each and every part has its own quality. Of course, the early pregnancy is full with a lot of questions, anxieties, doubts and worries. And then when you look towards the birth, of course, having a good birth is a good resource for the rest of your life. Not only for the woman, for the baby, but also for the partner. And I think we can agree, also the best start in life. And then, of course, for me, it's usually the first year where people just grow into this fact that they're parents now. And now they really have to learn the skill and stay on top of it.
And I love when Jutta opens all her discussions. Pregnant community. What does that mean, pregnant community? Pregnant is just for women. A man can't be pregnant. And I'm bringing this question because I have heard quite a few discussions on this topic. What is your perspective, Jutta?
Well, the pregnant community is not only the woman. No, it's not only the women. It has to include the partners. Because, you know, there's a topic called from partner to partnership. And that is something that happens in the pregnancy. Partners, no matter which gender they have, must be included, because otherwise they'll be lost. And also they miss out on a very important part of the development, how this pregnancy goes, what they can do. And I call it how to form the best birthing team and the best partnership afterwards. If you have never played a double in tennis, well, if you haven't practiced, how are you going to win? And for me, this is the foundation of everything that comes afterwards. And that's a big topic for those people.
And Jutta, obviously, you're such an integral part of a couple's journey, obviously from pregnancy through to birth and then beyond. But Tracy, you're a parenting coach, so obviously you deal with adults who are dealing with the children in their lives at a variety of different ages and also a variety of different scenarios. So we're talking perhaps through adoption or through blended families, because there are so many different scenarios when it comes to parenting. Obviously it's a huge umbrella topic, but when it comes to the idea of the parent trap, what would you say is the biggest trap that we fall into in terms of our parenting style, where perhaps it's a generational one where we think, well, I'm going to raise my kids how my parents raised me? Would you say that that's the most common parenting trap that we fall into?
Actually, the biggest common parenting trap, I feel, is this external pressure. It's like a social anxiety, and it's quite invisible. And it's not until a parent goes through their years as a parent that they suddenly realise there's this pressure, intense expectation on them where they feel they're being watched as a parent. And the key thing about that is that actually takes them outside of something I'm calling their intuitive ability for a parent, without reading any books or going on any courses. Once a parent starts to ask themselves, what does intuition mean for me? And maybe even from the birthing moment, I remember with 4 babies, that process is intuitive. You know, there is a power force that goes through the body, and you've just got to step out of the way right from the beginning. So I'm kind of encouraging parents to look along their timeline and remember how it felt. Those moments where they were really intuitive and there's a feeling to it. And sometimes they can be nuanced and quite subtle. And it's not, what does the outside want? What does fear say? It's not even about time. It's that intuition transcends time, it transcends space, it transcends society's expectations on you. It transcends the programming that might be coded in you, even the epigenetic programming. It transcends all of that. It's like an information moment of being present with your child and tuning in and believing that you can understand the information exchange and the relationship exchange that's going on with your child. So at each moment, you can actually say, I need to be this now. This feels in alignment with my deepest desire, which is to share passionate moments of intense love and support with your child.
So often when we hear of parenting styles and techniques and this kind of thing, it tends to be top down.
Yeah.
So there's a hierarchy, and very often if people are perhaps in a higher hierarchy, if that's the correct term, at work, they will then come home and they will parent in the way that they treat their staff, that they're familiar with. Exactly.
Yeah.
So how you've spoken previously about this idea of kind of leveling out that hierarchical system. How would you go about doing that?
Yeah, this comes into the understanding of leadership. So there's a model, again, there's an old paradigm out there that says military or corporate, I'm the head of the CEO and you will do what I say, and this is top-down model, which from my experience, all my kids are 20-something now, and they never appreciated that. There was a resistance. It's damaging, I think, to a relationship with your child. And I love the fact that my sister's in leadership, and she said, Tracy, the model it's leveling now. There's an understanding that a true leader will notice the team members and bring out the best in the team members so that we can all collaborate and work together, which is now true leadership. And I believe that's coming through the corporate world. And so naturally, parents that are in the corporate world will come home, and if that's a shift that's happening, I think that shift will also happen in the parenting realm.
Well, Laura is laughing, and how does that feel with your kids and traveling a lot with them?
This is just like an incredible conversation. I'm just loving listening to what both of you have got to say, because like I've always this might sound crazy, but likened a pregnancy to developing a property or building a business. I think like that initial thing is you get it, the seed, you're like, oh, it's the excitement, oh, it's good, and then if you're ripping it apart or you're trying to build it, it gets challenging, it's a bit rubbish, you're going through the morning sickness or whatever, and then you get to the end and it all becomes better and you get this lovely, hopefully, little baby at the end of it. And then, obviously you have to work on building it and growing it. So I've always kind of like likened that, but also like from my parents' point of view, I mean, my children have had a very different upbringing to the upbringing that I had. And just because of the way my career has taken me abroad, and I didn't really know, when I fell pregnant, I didn't even know how it was going to work out, but I just thought, you know what, if I'm going to take them, I'm just going to wing this, let's just see what happens. And it's very easy for other people to force their opinions and say, well, your children haven't got any stability because, you're here, there and everywhere. And actually, I think, no, surely you give your children roots and wings. So I'm the stability, as long as they're with me and they know that they're loved and they've got that. But then I want to show them life and, give them that opportunity to explore. But also the other thing was, as a child, myself growing up, you always think your parents are right. And it's only as you get older and then you become a parent and you realise, well, they were just winging it as well. So, but obviously I have an enormous amount for respect for my parents and the way they've brought me up. But I definitely feel I'm bringing my children up in a different way, not because I was parented badly, but just because of the way my work, as I said, has thrown its opportunities my way, that I've had to. And I also think that as I was a child growing up, my parents didn't have to deal with social media and all of those factors that come into play now that I have to deal with a 9 and 10-year-old.
You have to evolve with that.
And in fact, the way I see it is like, I come from a culture where the parent is always right. You have no voice, you have no choice, you just know your place and you have no way to contest anything that the parent is saying. Then I found myself in a complete different parenting style where, in fact, now I have no rights as a parent because the child is always right and the child is bossing me around now. And sometimes I find this conversation with my mom. I said, Mom, when I was a child, you were bossing me around. Now I'm a parent, my son is bossing me around.
When is it our turn?
So relevant though, because that's the other thing I'm finding with parents is that I personally know that my kids have helped me transform myself, because this is the inner child work, right? This is the attachment styles that are unconscious to us throughout our period of growing up ourselves, being children ourselves. So helping parents to say, which part of you needs to go back and be reloved and reparented? Reparenting yourself. You know?
Nurturing yourself.
Yeah, so you can level up and evolve that part of you, because those inner children are still within us.
Because we want to give children something that we didn't have ourselves. But are we helping them if we give them all this freedom? Yes, take it. You have the rights. You have everything. And they know their rights. You know, I was watching a really interesting movie the other night, and there was a little boy called the police, and the police showed up. And the mother opened the door and said, "What? I said, is there child abuse in this house?" I said, "No." "Oh, yes, it is." And that little child came in. I said, "What happened?" "My mom hit me." I said, "Okay, come here." And they called the little boy. "So where did she hit you?" And I said, "Here." "How many times?" "Twice." "Did she hit you before?" "No, never before." "No." "What did you do?" "Nothing." Okay, then they went to the mother and said, "What happened? Why did you hit your son?" I said, "Because I was told that he didn't go to the school." And then they called the son again and said, "So, you called the police on your mother? You called the police on your mother? If you leave the school again, I am going to come here and I'm going to hit you."
The police said that?
Yes.
Oh my.
And I was like, me and my son watching this. How do a parent and a child watch a movie like this? And it's quite a kind of, we opened so many conversations. And then he said, okay, and then he said, "Who told you that is a child abuse?" I said, "Henry." I said, "My friend." So children are learning all their rights. Children are talking with their kids, are learning in the school, and many times they're getting confused. What is my right? What is your right? So where do we where do we balance this conversation as parents?
I would like to add something to this. It has different perspectives, right? We know, for instance, that in society, very hidden secretly, many children are abused. So to teach children, you have a right to say no in all kinds of different ways. I think we all understand what I'm talking about, is a good thing. But on the other hand, social media is so confusing to all of them that I think parents have to open up a good conversation, even with small children, to explain them what is a no, what is a yes, and what is maybe not now, and to learn to ask for their things, but also to understand as a parent. I think sometimes you really just have to say, no, you can't have this ice cream, even if you scream and roll around. It works on so many levels, and I think that's modern parenting, and it starts from small age on. And I think I loved your story with this freedom to travel, because I think parents nowadays have a unique chance to really become such great parents, even that it's challenging, I get the point. But however, you can really change whatever you learned and what you didn't like with all the possibilities of freedom, especially when I look at women and at girls. I think it's a really exciting time in our life.
Can I ask all of you, just from your own unique, whether it's a parenting perspective or a professional perspective, just sort of picking up on what Morella said there, would you say that we are now at a very unique time in our parenting history in terms of this is possibly
pivoting.
Yeah, we're pivoting as parents in terms of this is the first time for a generation whereby the children are sort of ahead of us in terms of they're on social media, they have access to information that we don't, and we don't have time to. So therefore, in many ways, the children are educating us in terms of not just technology and how to understand it and this kind of thing, but rather than it being top-down parenting, because that's how it's always been. You mentioned the word paradigm shift. It absolutely is, but it's quite a tumultuous change because at the moment somebody has to call the shots, and somebody has to be right.
In charge.
And somebody has to be in charge. And surely it makes sense that it is the person who has perhaps more perspective and experience that is the one in charge. And yet it doesn't always seem to be the case. So how do we navigate our way through this? So I'd be interested to hear your opinion on that.
Well, the paradigm shift that I'm feeling, so if I had to summarize very generally what the old paradigm was, in fact, every system that we have within most cultures is fear-based. It's all fear-based. you know, let's teach our children, oh, we're going to have to punish them at home and get them scared, you know, because then they'll know when they go out there in the world that if they don't behave and they're not good, you know, they're going to get punished.
But
so
do
this
we
is
still
punishing,
need to teach
motivating
them consequences?
So see, interestingly, once you recognise the old paradigm is based on fear, and I think every parent would say, I would like to paradigm shift that to be motivated in love and understanding, that is a big shift. And you have to be aware of how your programming is within you. And if there is genuine fear there and you just react to your child, there is a moment of, our children are also emotionally intelligent. They have that ability now. The language, the new language is there. Let's have the open discussion while that shift is happening for parents to be able to say, I'm going to have courageous conversations with my kids, regardless of their ages and the questions they might ask.
I really love this conversation, and especially having experts like Tracy and Jutta and all these coaching opportunities that we have out there. But I work with women who are breadwinners, who are working flat out. They are doing 2 jobs, 3 jobs, entrepreneurs, running their own business. And they have to make sure that they have food in the table for their kids. And as Andrea said, we don't have the time sometimes to read all this information that our kids are reading. What would be your advice as experts and mothers? How do we find that balance where we find the time to sit with our... if there is a guilty feeling that I have, is like when I moved to this country, I was a single mother and I was terrified that I would not be able to provide food for my son. So I had to work like 24/7. And I didn't have that quality time with my son. So what happens? What would be your advice for those mothers who do not have that condition?
I mean, listening to you say that, I've always loved my job, and I have friends actually that have said to me, I never believed, Laurie, you would be a parent. And I'm like, why? And they said, well, because you're a career girl. So never saw that maternal side to you at all. And I've had moments where I've have to work, you know, really hard, and I have the mum guilt, and but then my children now, 9 and 10, will say, we get it, Mum. We know why you work, because if you didn't do what you did, we couldn't go here, we couldn't do this. So I think that is so important.
How old are your kids?
9 and 10.
Oh, wait a little bit.
And they, they see that work ethic. And, you know, there are then times where I do get quality time with them, and I explain. And my mum and dad always used to talk to me about everything. You know, there are things that happened in their lives. My mum had been married before she married my dad, before they had us. And I've always just known they've been open and they've been honest. And I don't even remember when I was told. I just have always known. And so my children ask me awkward questions. You know, they bring up some interesting topics sometimes. And I just feel like I want to be as honest with them as possible, to a point, without going, you know, too deep into things. But because I want them to, as they get older, to feel that they can come and talk to me. I'd rather them talk to me than going to talk to somebody else, or keeping it a secret. And feeling
there's a
that they
fine
have
line. It's like feeding them freedom.
Yeah.
I think you give them what they can emotionally handle at the time that they've asked
And
the
trust.
question, and then you can, you know, it's going to reel it out a little bit more. Jutta, just before we wrap on this, we've talked obviously about shifting parenting perspectives and styles and everything else. So I'd be really curious to know what you would say has been the biggest change that you've seen in the very long time that you've been working in the career that you have.
42 years, yes. The biggest change I've seen right now is really that women, like you, want to have it all and deserve to have it all. And that means when we look at the topic of female leadership, we cannot not look at birth, pregnancy, parenting, because I think modern women want to have a career, want to have babies, partnerships, their own life, and I think they deserve it. And I think that's the biggest shift we're seeing right now, especially in this time. And I think it will actually bring a big change to our society, and it's all of us that have to work for that. So there is no parenting shame in taking a nanny, a friend, or an auntie that helps or something. I think really this is how we teach boys and girls that the world could be a different place if we would allow that to happen. And that's the shift I really have seen.
I love that, because it's so important that we include every voice in the conversation. It can't be something that we all just have as women. That is it, Morella. We've run out of time.
Yeah, and it's important also to educate ourselves, because we are all women investing in our personal development. And if there is something that I see it as a light, when we lightening when we grow as parents, is like read a book, buy a book and give it to your child. And if you can't talk about awkward situation and conversations like I did with my son, I would buy a book and I said, put it to the bed. I said, okay. And then maybe talk a little bit after. So
Yes.
it's education. It's number one
Yes.
what I see. So we have to educate ourselves for the new paradigm because we're not prepared for that.
It is so true. And as parents, we fall into that parent trap of never being prepared because that's part of the journey. Oh, Tracy, Jutta, Laura, thank you so, so much for joining us today. And that is it. Thank you so much for joining us on The Agenda. We'll see you
for
next
joining
time.
The Agenda.
Hi, I'm Andrew.